Alright, so you definitely need pen and paper because I'm going to give you guys a lot of phrases of things that I say in my demo, a lot of like seed planting things. So you definitely want to take a lot of notes. I know a lot of you have heard me give this talk before about maximizing recommendations and getting yes recommendations. So I spent a lot of time last night looking through a lot of old notes, looking through a lot of old things, a lot of different, things that have, built the way that I get recommendations, so I can give that all back to you guys. Because sometimes, I don't know if this has happened to you before, where you learn something and then like you implement it in your demo and it just kind of becomes habitual, so you like forget that you do it and other people don't do it. Like, has that ever happened to anybody? So whenever you go to reteach it, you're like, you forget that that's something you should reteach. You just think it's like a normal part of your thing. So I spent a lot of time like grabbing different things, and what I noticed is that a lot of the stuff that I do is just taken from everybody else, all right? Everything. So a lot of it came from a talk that I heard by Rob Brandt, his RDC like 2011 talk. A lot of it came from Randy. A lot of it came from like a ton of different places. So the first thing that I want to share with you guys that I remember from Rob Brandt's talk is that the more you talk about recommendations, the more recommendations you will get. Like the same way, the more times you say expensive, the more value you're going to build. Well, the more times you talk about recommendations, naturally, the more recommendations you are going to get. So I'm going to give you 4 keys to rock your recommendations. You definitely want to write this down. The first one is pre-demo preparation. There's a lot of pre-demo preparation that goes into getting recommendations, and I'm going to help you guys out with that, from verbiage on the phones to verbiage on your done before. Second thing is seed planting, which basically means talking about it before you actually have to ask them for recommendations. The third thing we're going to talk about today is being persistent without being pushy. And the fourth thing is I'm going to give you some random lines for your arsenal, right? So you can have some ammo in your back pocket, so you just like take it out whenever you need it. Just whip it out. And then I'm just going to go over briefly how to get up the yes recommendations. I personally have switched a little bit on how I do it. So for those of you who have already heard me give the yes talk a ton of different times, I do it like a little bit differently now. So I definitely want to share that with you guys when I talk about yes recommendations. So the first thing is the pre-demo preparation. So does anybody know when getting or maximizing your recommendation starts? Anybody know? No. Starts in the demo before. You're like, oh, how does it start in the demo before? Well, something I've been doing lately that's definitely worked for me, and it helps a lot for yes recommendations or thought jogging with the customer beforehand, is when your customer is writing down everyone, you want to know who on the recommendation sheet knows who. So, for example, let's say Susie recommends me to Billy, Jessica, Issa, Muxo, and Sam. I want to know like who knows who, like if Christina knows Sam or if Christina knows Issa, because later on in my demo that I'm going to go on, I definitely want to mention that, like, oh, and Muxo, you know Sam, right? You know Sam. She told me that you guys know each other from like the boat club or like whatever it is that they know each other from. Yeah, she actually recommended me to her too. So just nice people like that. You definitely want to know that so you can seed plant like that later on. Then you want to ask them, who do you know that knows everyone, possibly someone who has the number of someone you want to recommend me to but don't have their number. Has anybody ever had somebody on a demo that's like, oh my gosh, there's this person who'll be like really good, I just don't have their number? I'm like, okay, perfect, who has it? All right, jot them down too. And or I said, can we contact them right now? I'll hop over there, I'll just do a quick presentation, whatever, and then I'll get their number, whatever. But so many times I've had people be like, oh, ask this person about her brother, or ask this person about her boss, like they're really good, they cook, whatever the case is. So then I'll make a note. I'm like, Muxo, okay, her boss, or Tovar, his sister. And then when I go there, what do you think I'm saying? Oh my gosh, Susie said your sister would love this stuff. So what's her number? She said that she'd be great for it. Or, whatever the case is. So it's going to help you with thought jogging, going to help you get a lot more recommendations. Pre-demo prep, also on the phone. I'm going to give you the phrase that I use on the phone when we go into seed planting, just so I give you all the phrases at one time. Also, I'm just going to leave this out there in the open. Some of you might not want to do it. This is something I started using because I just found it a lot easier. Since I just get a lot of recommendations, sometimes I get tired of writing. positive problem, right? So I actually have this app called BT Share. It's Bluetooth Share, and basically the best part about it is that, you know, like when you're sending contacts on like your iPhone, you have to send like one by one. Well, this one, it's kind of the same thing as the PR app where you just click them all and you send it over. So what I have them do is just click them all and send them over, and then we write down all the names, and I have them write notes while I'm cleaning up. So you guys are welcome to use that. But
you have to have the app too?
Yeah, so what I have them do is, like, while they're downloading it, they're just looking through their phone and starting to write down names, and then I get their number when they pass it over to me, and I just use the rec sheet to, like, write a crap ton of notes on there. So while it's downloading, they're just writing down names of people. But I found it to be a lot more helpful because instead of, like, thinking off the top of their head and then looking for the number in the phone, they can just look through each contact, like A through Z, and be like, oh, she'd be good, she'd be good, she'd be good, she'd be good. Because some people sit there and they're like, who do I know, who do I know, who do I know? And they're just thinking off the top of their head. This is like a no-brainer. They just go and they start moving people over, and they share it with you. And it's through Bluetooth, so it's like super fast.
What is it called?
BT Share. I'll write on the board if you want. Although, I think you all know the letter B and T and how to write share. That's what it's called. BT Share. You could also, like, share files and stuff like that, but I just use it for recommendations. They can do it if they have an Android or like, something that can download apps or whatever. So even if they have, like, an iPad that has, like, all their contacts on there, they can just move it over. And the best part is that whenever I get them, I just create a group in my iPhone with, like, you know, Karina's Rex or Taylor's Rex, whatever the case is, and I just go there. I call them. And they all have a knife next to their name, which I stole from Karina. But it seems to be very useful because, especially being a manager, and you guys should know this for your branch, sometimes you're going to have, like, representatives call you in the middle of the day, and, like, instead of having a ton of random numbers of customers and and representatives, you'll know exactly who your customers are because you have their number saved from the time that you got recommended to them. So you know when your customers call you. The next thing is to have your rec binder set up, and basically what I like to do is whatever goal sheet it is that you have in the front with, like, all of your goals on it, I just make a copy of it and put it on the front of the next binder because it's kind of like a reminder of, like, why you're working. They already saw it, so they already know what the page is about. So when they see it again, they know that whatever it is that you're about to tell them has everything to do with your goals from before. Does that make sense? So I just get whatever goal sheet I used before and use it on the front page of my rec binder to keep it kind of consistent, and they already know that whatever I'm talking about is going to be tied into my goals for the next thing. Also, for pre-demo preparation, you need to be ready to know something about everyone. If you don't know at least one unique thing about every person you've been recommended to, then whenever you go see them, you know, you're going to feel... It's so much more powerful when they feel like you already know them versus when they feel like you're a stranger to them. Does that make sense? So, it's going to be more powerful for recommendations, a lot easier to build rapport. And one of the biggest things about getting recommendations is just building a lot of rapport. Nobody wants to recommend somebody who's boring, who they don't like, who they don't connect with. So if you're boring, they don't like you, and they don't connect with you, you smell bad, whatever the case is, they're not going to want to recommend you to anybody. So if you take a shower and you're nice to them and you make them laugh a few times and you get to know them just a little bit, you should be getting more recommendations, all right? So if you haven't been doing those 4 things, you definitely want to implement it in your daily routine. That's definitely very important. So as far as seed planting go on the phone, I'm going to tell you what I say, and then you can, like, rephrase it however you need to. It's just kind of to get the gist of it, but if you do need me to repeat it because you want to write it down word for word, I will not do that. I'll just send you an email with this document later on, okay? But I'm just going to tell you what I say. I'll say it, like, a couple times so you get the gist of it. But it's basically just like, so I was over at Susie's and we had the best time. She actually introduced me to a bunch of her friends and got me closer to winning this scholarship that I'm just, like, working day and night for, which is why I'm calling now. Anyway, you don't have to buy anything like Susie did, but she did say you were super nice and can help me out with a quick appointment. I don't know if you know Muxo, but Susie introduced me to her, and I'm actually seeing her Friday at 3, and I'm so excited to meet her. You know her, right, from the boat club? Yeah, she said you guys knew each other. But whatever. I mean, the reason I'm calling now is since I'm seeing Muxo on Friday and you live close by, and then, you know, build urgency and ask for the time. So, I mean, they don't always live close by, you know, of course. But at least saying the part right here that says, she introduced me to a bunch of her friends and got me closer to winning the scholarship I'm working day and night for, like, that's huge. Why do you think that's important to say? Why would it be important to say that she introduced me to a ton of her friends?
Just because you get a lot of recommendations, so you
It's just setting expectations the whole time, you know? Remember something from your demo is that whenever you say something, you're not saying it just to say it. Like, everything has a meaning behind it. Like, why do we say it's expensive but worth it?
Set the expectation.
Right, you don't say it just to breathe air and say an extra sentence, right? You say it because it actually means something. Well, remember that when you're on the phone, too, it's not just reading an approach. Every sentence is setting up for something later on, okay? So it's really important to preface that beforehand. So I'm just going to read it one more time. So I was over at Susie's and we had the best time. She actually introduced me to a bunch of her friends, including you, and got me closer to winning a scholarship I'm working day and night for, which is why I'm calling now. And then, anyway, you don't have to buy anything like Susie did, but she did say you're super nice, can help me out with a quick appointment. Don't know if you know Sam, but Susie introduced me to her, and I'm actually seeing her on Friday at 3. I'm so excited to meet her. She says that she's awesome. You guys actually know each other from the boat club. The reason I'm calling now, since I'm seeing Sam on Friday and you live close by, thought I could pop by at blank or blank, which one works better for you. All right, so that's basically what I say on the phone. And you're already on the phone, so why not just add an extra line to help you out with recommendations for later on? It's a 5-second line that's going to save you many hours on the phone later on. All right, so you want to spend 5 seconds now or 3 hours on the phone later trying to, scrape up people to call when you could just have a crap ton of people to call. As far as building rapport, there's 3 key topics you never not want to ask or talk about. And the first thing that I like to do is you just say, this is a really nice neighborhood. Everybody here must be, super nice, right? And if, they don't have a nice neighborhood, you don't really have to say that. But if they do, it's just kind of a plus. It's a really nice neighborhood. Everybody here must be super nice, right? And how long have you actually lived here? So you always want to talk about the area they live in, right? Because, especially if it's a nicer area and you want to stay in that circle of people, you definitely want to be planting those seeds. How many of you have ever got into a really good circle and then you lose it? Does that ever happen to anybody? Well, it's because you probably didn't, ask for the people that live in that same area or built up why it's so awesome to see people who live by them. So you want to compliment their area and, kind of show them that you're excited about everyone who lives there. So this is a really nice neighborhood. Everyone must be really cool, right? Awesome. How long have you actually lived in this area? Boom. Then, are your kids into any clubs or sports teams? As you're seeing pictures of kids in the house, oh, look at little Johnny. Oh, he has a soccer uniform on. Is he a part of a soccer club or sports teams? What are your kids into? What are their hobbies? Oh, he plays guitar. Oh, that's awesome. And all these little things are things that you're gonna use later on to help you brainstorm with them more recommendations. Because if their kid plays soccer or is in any kind of sport or is in any kind of, charter school, private school that has a directory, you can, 1, ask for directories, or 2, just ask for more people. So you're always going to end up with more recommendations. It doesn't really hurt to ask the question. And then the last one is you just kind of assume that they throw a lot of parties, and you want to just ask them, so how often do you party? Or how often do you have parties? Or how often do you go to parties? You know what I mean? Because later on when I'm asking for recommendations, something that I've been saying and I really like to say now is, so just write down everybody that you usually invite to your party that would potentially see your cuckoo at home. Just write down everybody who you'd probably invite to your party. Because if they throw parties, who do they invite? 5 people? No, they invite, how many people do you usually invite to a party? At least 10, right? At least 10 people. So whoever's on, their party list or invitation list, it's going to exceed 10 people. So they write down their whole invitation list. That's already 10 to 30 or probably even more people that they can recommend you to. As far as the automatic sponsorship goes, when you get to that page, you really just say the same thing. Miss Jones, this is a free way to help me out. Susie said you'd be most likely to beat her out in this part, but don't worry about it. We'll talk about it a little bit later. And we're going to talk about competition later on. You always want to make things a competition, but you can just, throw that little one in there if you want to. So the next thing that I think is really, really important, and some of you might or might not have this in your book, is how many of you have a customer list in your book? A happy customer list. 1, 2, 3. All right, you definitely want to create a customer list and write this down. You want to write their name. You want to write the year they originally bought Cutco. You want to write how many times they were sponsored. So 1 time sponsor, 2 times sponsor, 3 times sponsor. All right, and then highlight all the sponsors. So write down their name, the year that they originally bought Cutco, and then whenever they bought it from you, right next to it. And then how many times they were a sponsor, and then highlight all the sponsors, all right? which everybody should be highlighted. You should get at least 10 from everyone. All right? Now, what I say when I get to my customer list is, Miss Jones, my goal for everyone I meet is to eventually get them on my happy customer list. Everyone highlighted is someone who actually got me closer to my goal, not just by buying Cutco and supporting me in sales, but supporting me by introducing me to a ton